I hate it so much. Oh my god. My hands are shaking and it's night 1. Now we get to see the other thing I absolutely hate. Oh my god! What you just watched was a compilation of me being absolutely terrified during my first full playthrough of FNaF 4. Yeah, that's right, my first. I've avoided playing FNaF 4 for 6 years about, for one reason and one reason only. That reason being that the game absolutely terrifies me. But, after I'd received several comments on my most recent video asking me to make one discussing this game, I figured it was finally time to sit down and face my fears once and for all. And I gotta say, after playing through the whole game and completing it, I now hold the opinion that FNaF 4 is easily the scariest game in the entire franchise. There are many reasons as to why I hold this opinion, however, for this video, I really want to key in on one specifically. The jump scares. So before I delve into what makes the jump scares in FNaF 4 so scary, I first want to bring up what a jump scare even is, and how they can be effective. Jump scares are a commonly used trope in horror which refers to anything which pops up suddenly on your screen, usually accompanied by some kind of loud noise. Five Nights at Freddy's is arguably most well known for its use of jump scares, which has led to quite a few people who dislike the series claiming that this kind of horror is lazy. While I do agree that jump scares can be lazy when they are used incorrectly, a well-done jump scare can really leave a lasting impact on the person who experiences it, and it all boils down to how it's done. I personally like to sort jump scares into one of two categories which I most commonly see them used in. These two categories are the startling jump scare and the suspenseful jump scare. The startling jump scare is one I would describe as being a complete and total shock. It's a jump scare which comes out of nowhere with no build up to it, and it's usually used for the purpose of catching you off guard when you least expect it. A good example of this kind of jump scare would be in a game like Resident Evil 7, in the scene where Jack Baker comes barging through the wall of the old house. It happens in an area where you assume you've gotten away from any threat, there's no ambience, no build-up, and it happens alongside a loud crashing noise as the wall falls apart. These jump scares are most effective when you have no expectation that they're coming, and they're the ones which you see less often in FNaF games. The suspenseful jump scare is the one which the FNaF franchise usually caters towards. It's the kind of jump scare where you know it's coming, but you just don't know when. Maybe the ambience is slowly swelling up, trying to build up to the jump scare, or perhaps there are some kind of visual cues happening, implying that something is coming that you, the player, are aware of, while the character you play as is blissfully unaware. This kind of jump scare is very effective for a game which relies on its tension. It's designed to keep the player on the edge of their seat and take away any feeling of safety they may have. Both of these jump scares can be extremely effective if set up correctly, and I find that many of the most memorable moments in a lot of horror games I play come from being terrified when these jump scares happen. There is one huge flaw with jump scares though, one which both of these varieties I discuss carry: second and third playthroughs. Sure, a well-done jump scare can definitely scare the crap out of you the first time you play through a horror game, but what about when you know it's coming? The greatest flaw that jump scares have is that they're one and done. Once you know that the event's happening where the jump scare happens, you're able to prepare yourself for it. It's no longer scary. And with that point made, allow me to talk about why the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, more specifically FNaF 4, was able to completely avoid this problem and have some of the scariest jump scares I've seen from any game series I've ever played. So what is it about FNAF's jump scares that make them so effective? How was it that Scott was able to bypass the main flaw of repetition with jump scares that I already discussed? Well, the answer to that is unpredictability. You see, the FNAF series isn't one that's built on scripted events where the jump scares happen. Instead, the jump scares are a consequence of the player failing to do some kind of mechanic correctly. A player could potentially get through the entire franchise without seeing a single jump scare if they were good or lucky enough. But I guarantee you, they would spend that entire playthrough terrified of the fact that they might slip up and get jump scared anyway. Because FNAF's jump scares are based on how a player handles the many random events that happen during their playthrough, it becomes nearly impossible to predict when you will or will not get jump scared. This unpredictability, this fear of messing up, the paranoid feeling of not knowing when something terrifying will pop up in your face, that's Five Nights at Freddy's. And what makes it work so damn well is that by having this system in place, you are constantly on the edge of your seat every single playthrough. Now, each game in the series implements this system in different ways, some doing it better than others. However, I feel that there is one game that does it better than every single other one in the franchise, and that game is FNAF 4. FNAF 4's jump scares are, without a doubt, the scariest ones this series has to offer. The entire time I played through this game, I was terrified. Every single move I made felt like the wrong one, and no matter where I was in the bedroom, I felt like I was going to get jump scared by something when I turned back around. FNAF 4 does this by leaving so much of itself in pure darkness, forcing the player to rely on their ears to hear very small audio cues which will play all around you. Listening for light footsteps, breathing, laughter, and the screams of the little Freddies are all examples of small audio tracks to keep track of. By making so much of the game audio-based, Scott not only forces the player to turn up their volume quite loud, but also forces them to listen really, really closely. And of course, you can imagine what happens when you're playing a game all about jump scares and you have to listen very closely to even know what's happening.
Oh my god!
Aside from the audio of FNAF 4 making the jump scares even more intense, there is another thing about the audio FNAF 4 does to the player. Something which I'd argue is even worse than the jump scare itself. The audio makes you second guess yourself. For example, FNAF 4 has a lot of background ambience. Dogs barking, the phone guy for some reason, the sound of Chica in the kitchen. These are all small pieces of ambience which play in the background that could potentially mess with the player. Sometimes these audio cues make you feel like something could be breathing at your door, but you just don't hear it. That kind of anxiety and tension can sometimes lead to the player making the wrong decision out of fear of seeing that jump scare again. And funnily enough, making that wrong decision ends up making the jump scare happen even faster. By having such terrifying jump scares in FNAF 4, Scott effectively made it so the player would become so scared of seeing them again and again that they end up making mistakes as a result of that fear. And that just makes FNAF 4 one of the most stressful experiences I've ever had playing a game. Another really strong part about the jump scares in FNAF 4 is the fact that there are a lot of examples of the two different kinds of jump scares I discussed earlier existing in the game. Startling jump scares are riddled through the game when you least expect them, some examples being when Foxy first enters your closet, and in the minigames when the crying child's brother pops out from under the bed or behind the TV.
Not cool!
These jump scares exist alongside the suspenseful ones, being all the jump scares you experience when you get killed. Having this variety in the game makes it so the player can be startled and scared even when they least expect it. It's one thing when the player is already terrified of a jump scare happening as a consequence of their actions, but to have little ones thrown into the mix when they think they're safe can make the experience even more stressful, as they begin to worry about what other jump scares will happen when they least expect it. All of these aspects culminate together to create an experience which took me 6 years to finally end up playing through, and after I finally beat it, I think I'm justified. FNaF 4 is a terrifying game, and one which I'd probably consider my second favorite in the series now. I feel that if we're talking purely from a horror standpoint, this one is definitely the peak of the series. Of course, if you disagree with that statement, I would love to hear which FNaF game ended up scaring you the most, since I feel like almost everyone's got a different story they can tell after playing through these games. Either way though, I look forward to seeing what your guys' thoughts on the matter are, and I hope you enjoyed watching all the clips of my dad having the crap scared out of him. I know I enjoyed recording them. Hope to see you all again soon. Yes. Oh my god, yes.